Picture yourself standing on a beach millions of years ago. The water is warm, almost tropical. You're looking out across an endless blue ocean, watching the gentle roll of waves. And then you see it, a dorsal fin, taller than you are, cutting through the surface like a blade. Not moving fast, not in a hurry, because when you're the largest predator that ever lived, you don't need to hurry. The ocean is yours and everything in it is food. This is the world of the Megalodon. Not a dinosaur, not a monster from mythology, but a marine animal that once ruled every warm ocean on the planet. And what makes this story remarkable isn't just how big it was or how powerful. It's that for millions of years, nothing could touch it. It was invincible, until suddenly, it wasn't. Let's start where all stories about extinct animals must start, with the moment we realized they existed at all. Long before anyone knew what a shark was, people were finding strange, triangular stones embedded in rocks and riverbeds. These objects were hard, smooth, serrated along the edges like the blade of a saw. Some were as long as a human hand. In ancient Rome, a writer named Pliny the Elder looked at these mysterious objects and decided they must have fallen from the sky during lunar eclipses, as you do. By the Middle Ages, Europeans had a different explanation. These weren't stones that fell from the sky. They were glossopetra, petrified tongues of dragons and serpents. Tongue stones. People wore them as pendants, ground them into powder for medicine. They believed these stones could protect against poison, cure wounds, even ward off evil spirits. Entire cabinets of curiosities were built around them. They had no idea they were holding the teeth of the most powerful predator the ocean had ever produced. The truth came in 1667. A Danish naturalist named Nicholas Steno was dissecting the head of a great white shark when something clicked. He looked at the shark's teeth, then at the mysterious tongue stones people had been collecting for centuries. The shape was the same. The serrations matched. These weren't dragon tongues. They were shark teeth. Massive shark teeth. Teeth from something far larger than any living shark. Steno published his findings, and slowly, over centuries, scientists began to piece together what this animal might have been. By 1843, Swiss naturalist Louis Agassiz gave it a name: Otodus megalodon. In Greek, it means big tooth. Sometimes the simplest names are the best. But here's the challenge. Sharks aren't like other animals. Their skeletons aren't made of bone. They're made of cartilage, the same flexible material in your nose and ears. Cartilage is lighter than bone, which helps sharks stay afloat and swim vast distances without exhausting themselves. But cartilage doesn't fossilize well. It breaks down, disintegrates, vanishes back into the ocean floor. So almost everything we know about Megalodon comes from teeth, and vertebrae occasionally. The rest is educated guesswork, comparison with modern sharks, computer modeling, and detective work across millions of years of ocean sediment. We're trying to reconstruct a ghost based on fragments. And somehow, from those fragments, an entire predator has emerged. Now let's talk about size, because that's what everyone wants to know. How big was this thing really? For decades, estimates were all over the place. Some scientists suggested lengths of 100 feet or more. Others were more conservative. The problem is that without a complete skeleton, you're essentially reverse engineering an animal from individual teeth. It's like trying to figure out how tall someone was by measuring their fingernail. Modern estimates, using more refined methods and comparisons with living relatives, place adult megalodons somewhere between 50 and 60 feet in length. Some individuals may have stretched even longer. The average was probably around 33 feet. To put that in perspective, a modern great white shark, the animal that terrifies swimmers today, averages about 15 feet. A school bus is about 40 feet long. Megalodon was bigger than a bus, and it was a predator. The teeth alone are staggering. Most fossilized megalodon teeth measure between 4 and 5 inches long. Large specimens can exceed 7 inches. Compare that to a great white's tooth, which tops out around 2 inches, and you start to understand the scale we're talking about. These teeth were triangular, serrated like a steak knife, and thick, not delicate cutting blades. These were spikes designed to punch through bone and muscle, to tear and crush, to hold onto struggling prey that weighed as much as a modern humpback whale. And the bite force. Computer models estimate that Megalodon could bite down with a force between 24,000 and 40,000 pounds. Some estimates go higher. For context, a saltwater crocodile, which has one of the strongest bites of any living animal, bites with about 3,700 pounds of force. Megalodon was operating in a completely different category. When it bit into prey, it wasn't just cutting flesh, it was pulverizing bone. We know this because we've found the evidence. Whale fossils with Megalodon tooth marks punched clean through vertebrae, ribs crushed by the pressure of those jaws closing, sometimes entire teeth embedded in bone, broken off during the attack and left behind like calling cards. The body itself is harder to reconstruct. For years, scientists assumed Megalodon looked like a giant great white shark, stocky, powerful, built like a torpedo. But recent studies suggest Megalodon may have had a different body plan entirely. It might have been more elongated, perhaps more similar to a modern mako shark. The truth is, we're still not completely sure. What we do know is that this animal was built for one purpose: killing things in the water. And it was very, very good at it. The Megalodon didn't appear suddenly. It was the product of millions of years of shark evolution, part of a lineage called the megatooth sharks that stretched back over 50 million years. Its direct ancestor, a shark called Otodus obliquus, swam the Paleocene oceans around 55 million years ago with smooth-edged teeth. Over time, those teeth became larger, thicker, and developed the serrated edges that would become Megalodon's signature. By the time Megalodon itself appeared, around 23 million years ago during the early Miocene epoch, the world had changed dramatically. The age of dinosaurs was long over. Mammals ruled the land and were beginning to dominate the oceans as well. The ancestors of modern whales, dolphins, and seals were diversifying, spreading across warm tropical and subtropical seas. And Megalodon was there to eat them. Now maybe you can help me out by eating that like button and subscribe if you want to see more. For nearly 20 million years, Megalodon was the apex predator of every warm ocean on Earth. Fossils have been found on every continent except Antarctica. Not because Megalodon didn't swim near what is now Antarctica, but because that region was warmer then, and the shark likely avoided truly polar waters. It preferred temperatures between 34 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Warm, productive coastal waters where prey was abundant. These weren't the oceans we know today. Sea levels were higher. Vast, shallow seas covered parts of continents that are now dry land. The climate was warmer, wetter, more stable. And in those waters, life exploded. Baleen whales, filter feeders that strained tiny organisms from the water, grew to enormous sizes. Toothed whales, early relatives of modern sperm whales and dolphins, hunted in pods. Seals and sea lions lounged on rocky shores. Sea turtles drifted through coastal shallows. And everywhere, fish, vast schools of them. Megalodon sat at the top of this food pyramid, and the pyramid was wide enough to support it. Scientists have spent years studying fossilized whale bones with Megalodon bite marks, trying to understand how this predator actually hunted. What they've found is fascinating. Megalodon wasn't a mindless killing machine. It was strategic. Great white sharks, when they attack large prey, typically go for the soft underbelly. They want to avoid thick muscle and bone, targeting organs and blood vessels. Megalodon did something different. It went straight for the chest cavity. Those massive teeth, built to punch through bone, were designed to crush ribs, rupture lungs, destroy the heart. A single bite could be fatal, not through blood loss, but through catastrophic internal trauma. Fossilized whale remains show this strategy clearly. Compression fractures on vertebrae suggest Megalodon sometimes attacked from below, slamming into prey with tremendous force. stunning or breaking the animal's back before moving in for the kill. Bite marks on flippers and tail flukes show attempts to immobilize prey, preventing escape. Some fossils even show evidence of healing, meaning the whale survived the initial attack. Megalodon didn't always win. But here's what's interesting. The attack patterns varied depending on the prey. Smaller cetaceans show different damage than larger whales. Some fossils suggest Megalodon used different strategies for different targets. For massive baleen whales, a sustained attack on vital organs. For smaller, faster prey, quick ambush strikes. For raptorial sperm whales, aggressive sharks in their own right, attacks aimed at the head and jaw. Recent studies have also challenged the assumption that Megalodon fed exclusively on whales. Analysis of tooth isotopes, chemical signatures that reveal what an animal ate, suggest a much more diverse diet. Fish, sea turtles, seals, dolphins, other sharks. Megalodon was opportunistic. If it was large enough to be worth eating and slow enough to catch, Megalodon ate it, and it needed to eat constantly. Estimates suggest an adult female Megalodon, weighing somewhere between 50 and 100 tons, required up to 2,500 pounds of food per day. That's more than half a ton, every single day, just to maintain its body temperature and fuel that massive frame. Which brings us to something scientists discovered only recently. Megalodon was warm-blooded. Well, partially. It could maintain a body temperature about 13 degrees Fahrenheit, warmer than the surrounding water, a trait called mesothermy. This gave it a huge advantage. Warm muscles are faster, more powerful, more efficient. It meant Megalodon could swim faster than cold-blooded sharks, hunt in cooler waters, and outlast prey in long chases. But it also meant Megalodon needed enormous amounts of food, constantly, just to keep itself warm. That metabolism was a double-edged sword, and eventually it would become a fatal weakness. Like all sharks, Megalodon gave birth to live young. We know this because scientists have discovered something extraordinary: Megalodon nurseries. The first confirmed nursery was found in Panama, in a geological formation called the Gatun Formation, dating back about 10 million years. Researchers were collecting shark teeth when they noticed something odd. Most of the teeth were small, very small, too small to be from adults. After careful analysis, they realized what they'd found. This shallow, warm coastal environment had been a nursery ground where juvenile megalodons lived, protected from larger predators. Since then, more nurseries have been identified. In Maryland, the Canary Islands, Florida, Spain. These sites all share common features: shallow water, high productivity, meaning lots of fish, and other small prey, and protection from the open ocean where adult sharks, including adult megalodons, hunted. Newborn megalodons were not small. Estimates suggest they were born at about 11 feet long. That's larger than a full-grown adult great white shark. From birth, a baby megalodon was one of the largest predators in its environment, but it was still vulnerable. The nurseries protected them from hammerhead sharks, from snaggletooth sharks, even from adult megalodons who wouldn't hesitate to eat their own young if given the chance. Juveniles stayed in these nurseries for years, feeding on fish, small whales, dugongs, and sea turtles. As they grew, they ventured farther from shore, gradually moving into deeper water. By the time they reached adulthood, they were ready for the open ocean, ready to hunt the largest prey the seas had to offer. Studies of growth rings on fossilized vertebrae suggest Megalodon grew relatively slowly, reaching sexual maturity around 25 years of age. An adult Megalodon could live 80 to 100 years. Think about that. A single individual Megalodon could patrol the same stretch of ocean for a human lifetime, hunting, feeding, ruling its territory for generations. These nurseries weren't just important for individual sharks. They were critical to the species' survival. Sharks have low reproductive rates. They produce few offspring, and those offspring take years to mature. Without protected nursery grounds, juvenile mortality would have been catastrophic. The species couldn't sustain itself. Remember that, because it becomes important later. The beginning of the end. Around 5 million years ago, the Earth began to change. Slowly at first, almost imperceptibly. But the changes were real and they were profound. The climate was cooling, not dramatically, not overnight. But degree by degree, over hundreds of thousands of years, global temperatures dropped. Ice began to accumulate at the poles. Glaciers formed, locking away water that had once filled the oceans. Sea levels fell. By the end of the Pliocene epoch, about 1.6 million years ago, sea level had dropped by more than 600 feet. For most animals, this was just environmental noise. Weather changes, species adapt. But for Megalodon, these changes were catastrophic. First, the nurseries disappeared. Shallow coastal lagoons, the protected warm water environments where juvenile megalodons grew up, dried up or became too cold. Newborn sharks, 11 feet long but still vulnerable, found themselves exposed to predators. Juvenile survival rates probably plummeted. Second, the prey changed. Baleen whales, the slow-moving filter feeders that had been a staple of Megalodon's diet, began to decline in diversity. Many species went extinct. Others migrated toward colder polar waters, following the krill and plankton they fed on. Megalodon, adapted to warm water, couldn't follow them. The hunting grounds that had sustained millions of sharks for 20 million years were shrinking. Third, competition arrived. Around 5 million years ago, a new predator appeared. The great white shark. Smaller than Megalodon, yes, but faster, more agile, more efficient, and perfectly adapted to hunt the same prey Megalodon relied on. Studies of tooth isotopes show that great whites and Megalodons had overlapping diets. They were eating the same animals. And in a world where food was becoming scarce, that competition mattered. Around the same time, killer whales evolved. Pack hunters. Intelligent. Warm-blooded, which meant they could thrive in cold water where Megalodon couldn't go. Killer sperm whales, now extinct, were even larger, with teeth bigger than Megalodon's. They likely hunted in groups, overwhelming prey through coordination and numbers. Megalodon hunted alone. And when you hunt alone and your prey is disappearing and new predators are competing for what's left, and your nurseries are vanishing, and your warm-blooded metabolism demands constant food just to stay alive, you're in trouble. That warm-blooded metabolism, the thing that had given Megalodon its edge for millions of years, became a liability. Maintaining an elevated body temperature requires energy, lots of energy. In a world of abundant prey, that wasn't a problem. But as prey became scarce, Megalodon found itself trapped. It needed enormous amounts of food to survive, but the food was disappearing. It couldn't expand into colder waters without even more food to fuel its metabolism. It was being squeezed from every direction. The extinction didn't happen overnight. The fossil record shows a gradual decline. Megalodon teeth become less common in sedimentary layers, suggesting populations were shrinking. The geographic range contracted. Areas where Megalodon had once been abundant went silent. The exact timing of extinction is debated. Some studies suggest Megalodon vanished around 3.6 million years ago. Others place it closer to 2.6 million years ago, right at the boundary between the Pliocene and Pleistocene epochs. What's not debated is that it happened. The apex predator that had ruled the oceans for 20 million years, that had survived multiple climate shifts, that had adapted to changing seas again and again, finally reached a breaking point. The last Megalodon died alone somewhere in Iowa, warming tropical sea, unable to find enough food, unable to reach the nursery grounds its species needed to reproduce, unable to compete with faster, more adaptable predators. And the oceans moved on without it. For 20 million years, Megalodon was the apex predator. Nothing threatened it. Nothing competed with it. It was so successful that it barely changed over millions of years because it didn't need to. The design worked. Why mess with perfection? But that perfection was fragile. It depended on warm oceans full of prey. It depended on shallow coastal nurseries. It depended on a stable climate and abundant food. When those conditions changed, Megalodon couldn't adapt fast enough. This isn't a moral story about strength or weakness. It's a lesson about ecology. Even the most successful species, the most powerful predators, are vulnerable to environmental change, especially when that change happens faster than evolution can respond. We live in a time when the climate is changing again, faster than it has in millions of years. When entire ecosystems are collapsing. When apex predators, from polar bears to great white sharks, are struggling to find food. The same forces that pushed Megalodon to extinction are still operating today. Different timescales, different species, but the same fundamental principle. Nothing is invincible. We know about Megalodon because it left evidence behind. Thousands of teeth scattered across ancient ocean floors, now turned to stone. Bite marks on whale bones. Chemical signatures, locked in fossilized enamel. From these fragments, scientists have reconstructed not just an animal, but an entire ecological system, a window into a lost world. Megalodon was king. It ruled every warm ocean. It hunted the largest prey. It had no natural enemies. And then the world changed, and the king fell. Not with a battle, not with a final stand, just a slow fade, population by population until the last one died and the seas moved on. That's the story of Megalodon, the largest shark that ever lived, the greatest predator the oceans have ever produced. And a reminder that in the long view of history, nothing lasts forever, not even giants.